Here I'm going to show you how to work the checker print panel. We're going to start at this bottom corner, work this way, change colors, and then continue working back and forth like this. And I'll even show you a couple ways of managing your ends so that you're left with only one end per square. So let's get started. So we're going to start with a foundation double crochet, and here's how I start it. Do 1, 2, 3 chains, yarn over, insert into that first chain, yarn over, pull up a loop. So now you're ready to work the chain part. So that's chain 1, and then finish your double crochet there. So now it's going to grow this way, and our initial chain 3 counts as 1 stitch, and then that stitch we just completed is the second stitch. So we're going to keep working this way until you have 11. So here I'm ready to work the 11th. So we're gonna work it as normal, work our chain portion, and then we're gonna work 1 yarn over, pull through 2. We're gonna stop right here because now you're ready to change colors. So what we've just worked is this section. Now we're ready to begin this section. So grab your next color, and you're gonna yarn over and close the stitch using your new color. Drop that tail, and then we're going to continue working 11 more foundation double crochet. Just pretend your color change didn't even happen, and just continue using this as your working yarn. Okay, I'll just double check. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so now we're ready to start the next row. So chain 3, and that counts as the first stitch. So now we're going to double crochet, not into this stitch, but into the next one, and into each stitch until you reach your next color. And we'll stop once we reach that last stitch. So here's the last stitch, and you're gonna work your stitch as usual, but stop here because this is where we change colors. So you're gonna drop this. Drop that strand, hold it to the front, pick up your other color, and then you're going to yarn over, pull through with that color. Now this is technically the wrong side of your blanket, and you can see this bar, it kind of travels a little bit too far across the stitches. So instead of just stitching into the next stitch, I'll just do this for an example and show you what it looks like. You're left with this bar, and even if you were to tug it a little more than I did, it's still kind of visible. So I'll show you what we're gonna do to sort of hide that a little better. It's really simple. Just gonna yarn over, and we're gonna work into this stitch, but we're going to just work underneath that green bar or whatever color you're using. Get under that bar and then work the stitch. So you can see what's happening is you're kind of catching it in your stitch. And now if we tug these tails a little bit, it's hidden a lot better. Now if you look really closely, there is a tiny little bar right here, and then it travels across right here, but it's way less noticeable than having that long float. So this is how I like to do it. I think it looks pretty clean, and it means that the wrong side of your blanket looks nice and neat. Keep on working to the end of your row. And remember that your turning chain counts as a stitch, so don't skip that one. So now we're ready to work the next row. Chain 3, Remember, it counts as a stitch, so we're not going to stitch into this one, but we're going to go right into that second stitch. And keep on stitching until you reach the last stitch of this color. The way we'll work the color change on this side of the work is a little bit different, but it helps to minimize the look of that float in the back. So here we are, we're at the last stitch. We're going to stitch right into here, and we're going to stop right at this point, drop this color, and if we look at the back, we've got the next color waiting for us right here that we can pick up. So pick that up and yarn over, close your stitch with that. Now at this point you can kind of tug on both of your colors a little bit, but you don't want to pull, like I'll just show you what this looks like. You don't want to pull this white too much, because then these stitches are nice and tall and stretchy, and then this is going to be really rigid and it'll make your blanket pucker. So you want this stitch to have just as much stretch as the rest of your stitches. So here's where the slight difference is. You can see, I'll flip it over, here's that float right there. You can see the white bar. So we're going to do a double crochet, but we're going to grab the bar as we work through this stitch. So I'll show you. Instead of just doing it like this, we're going to turn our work a little bit and try to get your hook under that bar. See, so now I've grabbed that bar, and if we're looking from this direction, the bar is on that side of our hook now. So if we continue to finish that double crochet and we look at the back, we've essentially done the exact same thing as on the last row, minimizing the look of that float and catching it within this stitch. And I'll end up doing both of these rows a couple more times just so you can see it again. But that's essentially it. And then once we work the next color change for the next row of checkers, I'll show you what I do in order to minimize the tails. So now we're on row 4. And this is the wrong side. Your tails, where you've changed colors, will always be on the wrong side of your work. They'll always be on this back side. So now we're going to work across this row again, and I'll meet you at the color change. Here's our last stitch. Stop here, and when we drop this color, make sure you're not dropping it to this side. You want to keep all your yarn on this side. So we're going to drop it to the front, pick up the next color, yarn over and pull. And again, you can tug this a little bit just to adjust your tension, because you don't want it, you know, like super loose, right? So you want to pull it just so it's snug, but not super tight that it'll mess up your tension. So there we go. You can see this float is kind of crossing over from down here up to here. Now what we're going to do, yarn over, and instead of just going straight into the stitch, you're going to go under the bar and then complete your stitch. So what we've done is captured that bar in between the stitch. So it's almost invisible. Continue to the end of the row. Now we're ready to work row 5. Here we're on the right side of our work again. I will meet you at the color change. So here we go, we've got one stitch left. Here's our stopping point, yarn drops to the back. We're going to pick up the next color, yarn over, and close up that stitch using the new color. Adjust your tension as needed. Yarn over to work the next double crochet. Go through the stitch, and then I'll just move this strand over so you can see. Make sure to grab that bar. And then we can continue our double crochet. There we go. And we've captured that bar in our stitch and worked to the end of the row again. Now this is the last row of our checker. So let's begin our double crochets, and I'll meet you at the color change once more. Here's our last stitch, stopping here. This is our wrong side row. Make sure to drop your yarn to the front so that it stays on the wrong side. Pick up your next color, yarn over, and close your stitch with it. Adjust your tension as you need to, yarn over, and instead of just stitching right into here, you're going to go under that bar to capture that float, and then work your double crochet. And then work to the end of the row, and I'll show you what to do. Okay, just stop here without closing that stitch because we're gonna have to change colors. So you can put your work down, grab your scissors, snip this yarn, leaving a tail just long enough that you can weave in. Same with this one, so this is the tail coming from right here. Snip that. So now we're ready to work. We're just gonna work alternating colors here. So what we're gonna do next is close this stitch with your other color. Leave a bit of a tail. I like to leave, I don't know, about this length. And then instead of just crocheting with this strand and leaving this to weave in later, I like to weave this strand in as I go on this row. So what I do is chain one using both strands to kind of lock it in place. Drop your tail end and crochet with just your working yarn. So the tail is now right here on top of our stitches. 2 more chains, and then work across this row. So we're skipping the first stitch because remember our turning chain counts as a stitch, and we're stitching into that second stitch while working over this yarn. So can you see how it's kind of captured in between our stitch there? I like to work a couple like this. So here maybe I'll work 3. And then kind of tug on your strand as you need to. You don't want it too tight. Then what I like to do as a little bit of extra security is I'll show you on this stitch. So same thing, capture that strand in here. But then what I like to do at this point, take both strands and then work this yarn over part using both strands as if they were one. Drop that tail again, and then continue with just your working yarn to close that stitch. And it just helps to lock it in place a little bit more, and it gives you a little more security than just crocheting over it. So if you feel like trying that out, go ahead. If you don't like it, you don't have to do it. That's what I do, and then I usually stitch over it a few more times, and at this point I'll snip it. And then we'll keep going until we're ready to change colors. Okay, so here's our last stitch. Now we're ready to change to the next color. So grab your other color and, oops, yarn over to close that stitch. You can kind of tug your strands a little bit as you need to. And then we're gonna do a similar thing with this tail as well. Hold the tail out of your way for now, yarn over, and then work your double crochet stitching around this tail. So we're capturing the tail in our stitch. Give it a little pull to adjust the tension. Same thing, work a few stitches like that, capturing that tail in your stitches. And then here on this one, I'll do that other little trick I like to do, where at this point of this double crochet, yarn over with both the tail and your working yarn. Go like that, drop your tail, and then work to close the stitch with just your working yarn. I'll do a couple more like this, and I think at this point I'll give it a snip. And there we go, it's just 2 fewer ends to weave in, and who doesn't want that? And now you're at the point where if you've already completed these 2 checkers, you have all the skills that you need in order to continue to crochet the rest of the checkers. So I hope that helps. That is how you complete the checker print section of this blanket pattern. Next, I'll show you how to seam your panels together. If you've ever done the mattress stitch, what we're going to do is really similar, but just with a bit of a variation so that the yarn is nice and clean when viewed from the right side. So you just need your tapestry needle, and you should have cut a long strand that measures twice the length of your panel. So it'll be really, really long because we don't want to have to tie ends together when we're doing our seam. So thread your needle. And what I like to do just to secure the end is to find, so here's the first stitch, would have been the turning chain, and I'm gonna just put my needle under the 2 bars of this stitch here, and same with the corresponding first stitch here. And then we're just gonna tie a little knot. I'm gonna take my needle off for a second. I like to tie a knot, just a single knot like this, kind of loose so that it's tight enough to stay secure while you work your seam, but it's loose enough that you can unpick it if you need to kind of make it look neater when you're weaving all your ends in. So thread the other end. Okay, so when you're working your seam, you're going to always begin with the same color yarn. So whatever color you're using for your seam right now, that's your starting one. So we're going to first look at this, this bottom row is where we're going to begin. We're going to insert our needle top to bottom and then come up bottom to top. The exact placement is not super important. You just want it to be really close to the edge. So we're going to pull our yarn through, and since this is the beginning of our seam, you're going to have quite a length of yarn to pull through, but it gets easier, I promise. Okay, so we've just gone down and up on this side. Normally, if you're doing the mattress stitch, what you would do is the exact same thing on the corresponding stitch. We're not going to do that because I tried it, and when you do it, it leaves a visible, in my case, white bar on the right side of the work. And what we're looking at here is the wrong side. So on the corresponding stitch, which is this first double crochet on my green square, I'm just going to grab from bottom to top, like the outermost bar that you can catch, kind of near the top of the stitch. Because since you went through bottom to top on your first square right here, where we left off, we came up at the top of the stitch. So we're going to stay near the top of the stitch, and then we're going to go back to this side and go down and up in this stitch, pull it through. And here, this is the second row, so the corresponding row here, this stitch here, I'm just going to grab this bar. It's pretty much the outermost bar near the top of the stitch from bottom to top, and pull through. And we're going to keep doing that until we reach this intersection where the colors change. So here I'll do the third row, bottom to top. Make sure you pull your yarn through carefully because with a strand this long, it can knot on its own pretty easily. So there we go, we got the third, and now we're going to do the same thing. Grab that bar in the third row. Fourth row. And now we can grab this bar. And once you've worked a few stitches, like you can see, here's our seam. It's kind of going back and forth like this. You can give it a little tug. And then when you look at it from the right side, it's nice and neat. There's a crisp line here and your seam is invisible. We're gonna keep going. Next row. And here's our last one. And then the corresponding stitch on the other side. Okay, give it a little tug. You don't want to pull it super tight because you don't want your seam to be really rigid, but tight enough that it looks nice and neat from the right side. And then I like to, once I get to this intersection here, I like to just go back and forth like this one time and just pick up those stitches. It just kind of secures the corner so that your intersection of these colors is just nice and crisp from the right side. For this, this first checker, we started on this side and then we went over to this side. Now that we're on this one, this yarn color I'm using is on this side, so we're gonna start here. And as you just saw, I did one little whoop, coming this way, and our yarn is on this side. That's fine. Just go through another stitch so that you don't undo this. So just go through another stitch, bottom to top, in the first row, and pull through. And now we're ready to do this first double crochet on the corresponding side, bottom to top, and pull through. Once you've worked a couple checkers up this way and your tail isn't quite as long, you can kind of work that as one motion. So I'll just do that right now. I'll show you. So we'll go here, we're working the second row. So we're gonna go in and out, and then you can grab one of the bars or one of the loops in your corresponding stitch and then pull all that through. It just makes it a little bit easier and saves you a little bit of time. Go, and we'll do it again. Now we're on the third row, so we're gonna go in and out, and then all in one motion, we'll do this as well, and pull. And then we'll just keep doing that until we reach our intersection. And here's our last one for this checker. And now you can pull your seam, not too tight, but tight enough that when you look at it from the other side, so here's what we just did, these two, it's nice and neat. And then just like before, I like to go across once just at this intersection. So we finished on this side. Just to maintain our same order, let's go from this way to this way. Super simple, straight across, and pull through. Okay, I'll do one more, I guess, just to show you. So now our yarn is on this side, but remember we want to start with the same color as our seam here. So we're gonna start on this side, even though our yarn is already on this side, doesn't matter. So go in and out, and then we'll pick up this loop here in the corresponding first stitch and pull through. And then once you get to the top, you can just tie it off so that it looks neat and weave your ends. The only thing left in this pattern is the border. I'll show you how to do that next. So to work the crab stitch or the reverse single crochet stitch, we're essentially working regular single crochet stitches, but we're going to go this way instead of this way. So let me show you. We'll insert our hook into the next stitch to the right, yarn over, pull up a loop, then yarn over and pull through 2. And then we're going to go into this stitch, yarn over. Okay, so we're just creating regular single crochet stitches, working in the opposite direction.